Hi, and welcome to another Photoshop tutorial with Steve. In this video, we're going to talk about how to create a vignette for your image. And if you've seen the vignette tutorial where I showed you how to do it with a brush, I think it's fair to say that this is a more sophisticated method for creating a vignette. It's a little more complicated, but I'm sure you can pull it off because I'm going to walk you through it. And I think you'll like the results of this one better. So the first thing I'm going to do is hide the vignette layer that I created in that other video. And then what we're going to do is go to the Elliptical Marquee tool. If it's not showing up here, you can right click and you'll see it hiding in the list. Select that, click in the upper left hand corner of your image and drag until it basically covers your whole image. So it's about the size of your image. And release. So now that we've created a selection, we're going to mask off the back of this using an adjustment layer. So we can just go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and you can use a variety of adjustments to do this. You could use brightness contrast, you could use curves, you could use exposure. For ultra simplicity, let's start with a brightness and contrast layer. I want you to name it, just click OK. And you'll see now we have our brightness and contrast adjustment layer with the properties. And we also have our layer mask here, masking off these edges. And so in order to make this work, we actually have to invert it because we're going to darken the outside edges. And the way you invert this is you go Control I or Command I on your Mac. So now it's masking off the inside of the circle or the ellipse. And now when I go to brightness and reduce the brightness, you'll notice it's going to start getting darker. So it's almost starting to look like a photo frame. We could go pretty extreme here if we wanted to. But then the problem is we have this sharp edge. So what we want to do is I'm going to close the properties window and I'm going to make sure I'm selected on my mask and I'm going to blur the edges of the mask. And the way you do that is you go to Filter, you go to Blur and Gaussian Blur and click on that. And basically the way that you blur it is by adjusting the radius here. And you'll notice if I go left, it gets crisp like the photo frame, and if I go to the right, it gets softer and softer. And so we actually want quite a bit of blur. If you go too far, you'll notice that it just grays out the entire image. So you have to be really careful of not doing that. But if you don't go far enough, then you'll see that you get a halo and it looks really obvious what you're doing. So you want to kind of find a happy medium where it blends in smoothly and probably about right there. Maybe right there is about right. And I'll click OK. And then we can toggle this off to see how it's working. Okay, and one kind of interesting thing we can do is I can actually toggle between this one, the original, and the one I did with the brush. And you'll see that the one with the brush and the one that's done with the layer mask are quite a bit different. The colors are better preserved in this one, whereas this one I did with a colored brush, so it kind of makes everything really blue. Alright, so that's that. Now if we wanted to take this one level further, we could do another adjustment layer, and we could actually lighten the inside of it. So what we have to do is get our Elliptical Marquee tool again and make another selection. This time we're going to keep it pretty focused onto the inside. If you find yourself getting a little too far to one direction, you can hold down the space bar and slide it over. There we are, centered. And right about there. Release your mouse to make your selection. And then we're going to create an adjustment layer using that selection, and it will also give us a mask. And let's go ahead and go, instead of going with brightness and contrast this time, let's go with curves, because arguably that's the more elegant way to do it. Although I know a lot of people are kind of scared of curves at first. It's totally understandable, but not to be afraid. We're just gonna follow along with me. And we're just going to now brighten up this inner circle. And we just click on this and gently drag up. And I'll be a little extreme again so you can see that ring again that we're creating. Let's just go right about there. Right there. And then again, we need to blur the mask to get rid of this sharp edge. So we'll close out of our properties. Make sure you're clicked on your mask, and you can see the difference between our two masks. This mask is very blurred out. This one's very sharp. We're not going to invert this one because we're actually lightening the selection right here, and that's what we want to do. If we inverted it, then we would be lightening the outside and undoing what we did here. So we'll leave that regular. Make sure it's selected by clicking on it. Go to Filter, go to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and it's already defaulting to a good radius, but again, I can play with this to kind of show you the difference. And basically at the point where you can't tell where that radius is where you want to be. So maybe right there, click OK. And then again, I'll toggle this guy off, and you can see how quite a bit darker that is. And with it on, it's quite a bit lighter. And then we can double toggle both of these to go back to our original. And the way this is, because of the mountain shadow, it almost looks like a reverse vignette. It's darker in the middle and bright around the edges. And so what we've done is basically reversed that to really bring some focus into the center, which is where our subject is. And now you can really see the contrast between this vignette technique and just using a brush. Pretty flat and lifeless, pretty dynamic. And I may have done a little too much vignetting on this. Sometimes less is more. If you feel like it is, you can always brighten it back up a little bit and reduce the intensity of it. That's probably quite a bit better, and then you can see the difference there. And I think that's pretty good. Another trick is to zoom in to take a close look at it and see if there are any lines, and then zoom out quite a bit. Because when you do that, then you can really see if you've got kind of a halo in there. But I think that's looking pretty decent. Okay, so that's how to use the Elliptical Marquee tool along with an adjustment layer and the Gaussian Blur to create a really quality vignette that preserves the colors and quality of your photo. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, click the like button, hit subscribe to see more videos, and check out my course in the description below if you want to learn a ton more about Photoshop. I love to teach, so I'd love to see you in there. Thanks for watching, and have an awesome day.